Hey everyone, so a quick Friday reads this week. This is mostly going to be an update on March of the Mammoths. I am reading some other things here and there, but mostly I'm working actually on 2 Mammoths, or although arguably 3. But anyway, I'll get into what I'm reading and what I mean by that. So I did mention that I was sort of not really feeling the Decameron, not really into it. I had read a little bit of it last year and a little bit of it this month, and for now I'm just not that into it. I think I'm still at heart a mood reader, and so I had to read sort of what my reader senses were tingling about, to say it strangely. And so I did, and for whatever reason, what I was drawn to was Langdon Hammer's 800-page biography of James Merrill. James Merrill was a great late 20th century American poet. He was born in 1926 and died in 1995, I believe. He died of AIDS. He was gay and lived throughout his life with a number of partners, and he wrote great verse. I've read this selection of James Merrill's poetry, and he's one of those poets who I wasn't bowled over when I first read him, like I was with, for example, Wallace Stevens, my favorite poet. But he was one of those poets where I read him and I can see that there's a lot I'm missing when I read it, but the beauty and the little bits that I get out of it tell me that I will return to his work. And I have occasionally returned to this volume to reread some of Merrill's poems. I probably actually returned to Merrill somewhat more often than even Wallace Stevens, who's my favorite poet. And I think that is because I've read more of Wallace Stevens, so I think I get Wallace Stevens a bit better than James Merrill. I haven't quite gotten James Merrill entirely. So anyway, I was really interested in his work, but also he just lived a fascinating life. Most of his poetry was autobiographical, and he sort of lived his life in a way to give him a lot to write about. He basically never had to have a job because his father was incredibly wealthy, so he just inherited a ton of money. So he spent his life traveling the world. He lived in Greece for a while and Rome for a while. He lived in various houses. He had a few houses that he owned. He took several lovers throughout his life. He lived with his boyfriends often in a time when it wasn't really acceptable for gay men to be open. He wasn't exactly openly gay, I guess, in our conventional sense now, even though a lot of his friends obviously knew that he was in relationships with men, but still, he was alive in a time when you weren't supposed to, obviously, reveal to the public the fact that you were gay. And he died of AIDS, which had a big impact on the end of his life, but and killed him. But yeah, and I'm absolutely loving this. What's great about this, there are a few things that I'm loving in particular about this book. One is that Langdon Hammer does a lot of readings of James Merrill's poetry. He quotes Merrill's own work throughout this book and gives readings of it in the context often of what's going on in his life, because again, a lot of his poetry is autobiographical. So I love that. And another great thing that I'm really particularly enjoying is that James Merrill was really into opera. Opera was a huge influence on his poetry and on the novels he wrote. He wrote a couple of novels as well as his poetry. Yeah, so reading about his interest in opera is really great for me as myself, sort of a budding opera buff. And actually, I have to admit that I think part of the reason I started to get into opera toward the end of last year was because of my growing interest in James Merrill. Because there are a bunch of videos about him on YouTube. I'll try to remember to leave a link to some of them. There is a lecture by Langdon Hammer in promotion of this book that he did when it was published. There is an interview with J.D. McClatchy, who was a poet, a younger younger contemporary of James Merrill's who's still alive and publishing, who's a poet, who was a friend of James Merrill. There's an interview with him. And there is also an interview with James Merrill himself on YouTube. So I'll try to remember to leave links to all those videos. But yeah, as I learned more about him and his love of opera, it got me more and more interested in him, and also just obviously interested in his life and the way he lived his life. Because, you know, he could have just sort of taken the easy way with all the money he inherited and just sort of lazed about his whole life and done whatever, or, you know, do, I guess, I don't know, what rich people who don't need a job do. I don't really know what they do, because I didn't grow up in that kind of a family. But he didn't. He devoted his whole life to writing and poetry. And, yeah, so it's just great. It's great reading about his writing life, his reading life. I've been taking notes on the authors he read and loved so that I can read them. Yeah, and just generally learning about him and the people around him. I think something that Langdon Hammer is doing really well in this biography is bringing to life the people who aren't James Merrill. You know, his lover, David Jackson, who was his sort of on and off lover for decades in his life. He's just started to talk about him and is really creating his character very well. He himself was kind of a failed writer, so he's an interesting character. James Merrill's parents were both really sort of colorful people in their own ways. They had a really tumultuous relationship. And yeah, so that's just making this a really great reading experience. And what I also like is that Langdon Hammer quotes a lot from James Merrill's letters and diaries and other people's letters to him. And I'm loving that as well, sort of getting another side of James Merrill's writing. I found some really nice quotes that Langdon Hammer includes from his diaries that I really liked. So yeah, all around, I'm just super enjoying this biography. And, you know, just, I wanted to make another note about just biographies in general, because for a long time I thought that biographies weren't my thing. I thought that biographies included too much of the minutia of people's everyday lives, and that made them very boring. Because I have read a couple biographies in the past. I read a biography of, oh, I can't remember her name now, but I read a biography of the wife of Chiang Kai-shek, and I can't believe I forgot her name. But the wife of Chiang Kai-shek, I read a biography of her, and I got through it, and I found it very interesting, but it was a really hard book to get through, just again, because of all the detail that is kind of hard. It's just a lot of information, and it makes the book go really slowly. It makes it really difficult to read if you don't already know something about the person. And I also tried to read a biography of Virginia Woolf. It was a huge biography of Virginia Woolf by Hermione Lee, which was clearly an excellent biography, so thorough, really well written, but again, I just got so bogged down in the details that it just became an incredibly boring experience, even though I am fascinated by Virginia Woolf as a person. The only biography that I've read so far that I've really, really enjoyed was Anthony Burgess's really slim biography of Shakespeare. And I mean, there's not much to go on with Shakespeare, so there's not much, you know, minutia you can include in a biography of Shakespeare. And also, Anthony Burgess's book is you know, it's like a quarter sort of Burgess's fantasizing about Shakespeare's life, and then half of it is Shakespeare's actual life, and then a quarter of it is him talking about the plays and poems, which is great. I loved reading that. But yeah, so I just come to think that maybe biography wasn't my thing. But I'm just gobbling up this biography of James Merrill. I just look forward to reading it every day. It was the perfect mammoth for me to pick, because, yeah, I'm just ripping through it. I'm enjoying every minute. Yeah, I'm just loving learning more about this poet, and it just makes me all the more want to find James Merrill's collected poems, his complete poems, which I think is itself thoroughly a mammoth. And I also absolutely want to read The Changing Light at Sandover, which is a great epic poem that James Merrill wrote. And he based it on his and David Jackson, his lovers. He based this epic poem off of their communications with dead spirits through a Ouija board, which is sort of a weird. It's sort of a weird thing to think that this otherwise rational human being would believe that he was communicating with the dead through a Ouija board. But it's still, I've read the first 2 or 3 cantos of the first section of The Changing Light of Sandover, and it's great. It's great poetry. It's really interesting. So anyway, I'm going to read that eventually. But yeah, I'm just loving this. I'm so glad I picked this as my second Mammoth. Enjoying it much more than I think I would have enjoyed the Decameron, frankly. And I also, I should say, I have been returning to James Merrill's poetry as well, which probably goes without saying. And then, yeah, the other books I've been reading, I did start another Mammoth, but this one I'm not planning to finish this month. So it's the Shahnameh by Abolqasem Ferdowsi. This is 950 pages long. It is a epic poem, obviously a huge epic poem, from I believe the 10th or 11th century AD. Abolqasem Ferdowsi is an Persian poet, and this is kind of, Ferdowsi is to Iranian literature as Shakespeare is to English literature. I think I have heard that analogy made, and this is his most revered work and his most influential work. And it's a book that I've known about for years. I don't remember where exactly I found out about it, but I've known about it for years. And the first I heard of it, I knew it was going to be right up my alley. So it starts really at the dawn of history. It doesn't start with the creation of the universe, which is what I thought it started with, but it starts sort of in the mythic past of Persia with the sort of old mythic kings, and just traces the lives of the kings of Persia throughout history, right up to the conquest of Iran by the Arabs and the conversion of the Persian people to Islam. So yeah, it really is just the lives of the kings of Persia, and yeah, it's full of battles and intrigue and drama, and yeah, so I think that I will love this, but I'm taking it slowly again, because it's kind of an oversized paperback. It's taller than most Penguin Classic paperbacks, and also it's in prose, which, as I said, for the translation of epic poems, I don't love, but this translation is very easy to read, very clear, and there are parts of it, little sections that the translator will include in verse, if you can see that, and I really like those. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to staying inside of this for a good long while, although I will say that whenever I say things like that, like, oh yeah, I'm going to take a long time to read this and sort of take it slowly, I almost always end up reneging on whatever commitment I make in that regard, so don't be surprised if, like, in 3 weeks I come back and tell you that I just binge-read this whole thing. But anyway, my plan at the moment is to try to take it slowly, because Crystal of Biblioatlas sort of told me that this is a book that's good to read slowly, just because there's a lot of different stories. It's, it's about a lot of different characters, obviously, because it talks about all the different kings. So yeah, I'm hoping to just give it a good long time, a good long read. But yeah, and I'm enjoying it so far. It hasn't picked up that much, but we're starting to get more into the more dramatic parts, I suppose. So yeah, I'm liking this. And then finally, the last, so I have also been reading, I'm sorry, I'll do the one I just picked up last. But anyway, I've been continuing with the Bible. I don't have as much to talk about with it this week as I did last week. I finished the book of Joshua, and I'm hoping today to finish the book of Judges, which is another one of my favorites. Again, just because the stories are great. I love the story of Samson and Delilah in particular that's in the book of Judges, and I really, really need to see the opera based on the story of Samson and Delilah by Camille Saint-Saëns. I'm probably butchering that French name, but there's an opera based on Samson and Delilah from the Bible, and I absolutely need to see it, because I have also heard excerpts from the music, and the music is incredible. But yeah, so I'm still chipping away at the Bible. I don't have too much to say about it this week, other than that I really enjoy the book of Judges. The stories are great, always great for a reread, and yeah, and I will be moving on to the book of Ruth, which is another one that I really like. And the book of Ruth is interesting because it's one of the few books of the Bible where women are central. So that makes it super interesting. But it's also a great story outside of that. So yeah, I've been reading the Bible, and then finally, very quickly, I've been revisiting some of Elizabeth Bishop. I bought this volume last year, and feel like I neglected it a little bit. I read the first volume of Elizabeth Bishop's poetry that's included in here, which is her debut collection, North and South. But I sort of didn't do much reading of it beyond that. So I wanted to give Bishop some more love in my reading life, and yeah, and also Elizabeth Bishop actually appears in the James Merrill biography, because she and James Merrill were very good friends, and they both admired each other's work. So yeah, I always love returning to Elizabeth Bishop. Like Merrill, she's someone who I see myself revisiting a lot, because a lot of her poems don't bowl me over the first time I read them, but require revisiting and rereadings for me to start to see what's in them and why they're, and just to start to love them. Yeah, so that's always a pleasure. I'm rereading some old favorites of Elizabeth Bishop and reading some new ones. So yeah, anyway, Elizabeth Bishop, and that is what I've been reading. I wanted to make this a quick video. I'm not sure it actually ended up being very quick, but I want it to be quick because I need to sort of get ready, straighten up my apartment, and sort of set things in order. I need to pack, actually, because I am heading out at 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm going on a long road trip out west. I'm actually going to go visit Jason and Kelly of Old Blues Chapter and Verse and Books I'm Not Reading, respectively. And I'll be staying with them for a few nights in Casper. And I think Jason mentioned in his last video that we'll be doing a BookTube Mad Libs, which should be great fun. Hopefully it'll turn out. And Jason and I think, are going to make a video or two. So yeah, I'll be reporting to you from Wyoming this upcoming week. And by the way, this upcoming week is spring break for me, so I'm not skipping class or something. And then I'm also planning to take some videos and post a little montage of my drive, because I'm planning to drive through Badlands National Park and the Black Hills. So I'm hoping that I can take my camera and set it up so that it takes nice videos while I'm driving, so that I'm obviously not going to drive and hold up the camera, but I don't want to stop too much to take videos, just because I'll already be taking a 15-hour drive. Yeah, anyway, that is what I have. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jason and Kelly. And I hope the videos we do turn out well, and I hope you enjoy those as well. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you've read any of these books, let me know and give me your thoughts. How's everyone's March of the Mammoths going? Let me know. Anyway, yeah, so that is what I have. I think I should go and get ready to head out. I will see you all hopefully in the not too distant future. So anyway, bye guys.